Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Sunday morning Sunday school devotion right here at St. John United Church of Christ. I'm Pastor Jana Myers, and I am really excited to talk about this lesson with you this morning. I am excited for us to dig into a really interesting question. You will, if you came last week, know that we are asking ourselves questions and pondering different answers or different sides of the coin. And this week we continue on that theme. You'll see the QR code or the link right at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to use that to take you over to ucc.org, where the Daily Devotion Still Speaking Writers Group have put together all kinds of lessons, and you'll find this morning's lesson in case you want to read along. The links are there, and you can find it on the website under the title Compassion in the Desert. It's by Talitha Arnold, who we love to read and are reading her again this morning, so you can find her devotion on the website. Just use that link, QR code, to read along. She's looking at Mark 8, verses 1 and 2a. In those days, when there was again a great crowd without anything to eat, Jesus called his disciples and said to them, I have compassion for the crowd. Our author writes, the Christian faith really isn't all that complicated. We may try to make it so, counting the number of angels on the head of a pin, debating whether to say trespasses or debts, arguing over the wording of this resolution or that proclamation. Meanwhile, Jesus keeps it pretty simple. Faced with 4,000 hungry people in the desert, he told his disciples, I have compassion for the crowd. If I send them away hungry to their homes, they will faint on the way. The disciples were rightfully concerned for the practicality of the feeding program. But Jesus didn't start with practicality. He started with compassion. It's a word that comes from two Latin words. Cum, meaning with, and patrire, to experience deeply or to suffer. To have compassion is to enter deeply into the experience of another, deep enough to know their suffering and feel their hunger. It's what Jesus did throughout his ministry. It's why we call the story of his last days Passion. Jesus could have quoted the Bible's injunctions to feed the hungry. He could have reminded the disciples how God cared for the ancestors in their desert times. He didn't. Instead, he simply focused on the crowd's hunger. He reminded the disciples and himself what would happen if if he and the disciples didn't do something to help. He started from compassion. May we call ourselves Christians. May we who all call ourselves Christians do the same. This is the great debate of whether or not to do something or to sort of design the right way. Is the best thing just to do it, or the best thing to think about it first and then do it? I don't know that there really is the best way. Our author is really good at highlighting that sometimes we let the perfect get in the way of the good, right? The idea that the program, the feeding program, I love how she calls it that Jesus starts by feeding the crowd, maybe wasn't very practical. But the fact that it was started is what's more important. I like this idea, but I wonder sometimes about being people who start things but don't finish them. When I was a youth pastor in New York City, the church really wanted to have a sleeping bag giveaway program. So we raised money and we collected sleeping bags. We collected over 80 brand new sleeping bags. And then in the dead of winter, we marched out and passed them out to anybody who wanted them who were sleeping on the street. And then about a week later, as I was going to work, I found so many sleeping bags without people. They weren't good quality sleeping bags. They weren't staying or keeping people warm, so they just become trash. And it ended up that there weren't as many people who wanted our sleeping bags as we had. So then there were sleeping bags that were just stored up in the closet. And the next year, when it rolled around, they decided not to do it again because it really wasn't the best way to do it. A good example of starting something with passion and heart and excitement, but maybe not enough thought, maybe not enough follow through. Maybe it needs to be different. I love that our author challenges us to start with compassion, to start with the question of doing something, to take care of people, to understand that we shouldn't let all of the bureaucracy and good policy get in the way of actually being of service. The tricky part is if we just jump 2 feet in without thought or reflection, a lot of our good effort will end up like my sleeping bags, wasted, trashed. And so I wonder if the best thing to do is to figure out which one we are. Generally speaking, we are good at being one or the other, idea people or action people. And as an idea person, it's really good for me to pair up with somebody like Daniel, my spouse, who is an action person. He is incredible at saying, that's a great idea, but have you thought about this and this and this and this and this? And he can think of all the wonderful things that should happen before we get there. I'm only really excellent at thinking about all the ways to start instantly. If it was up to me, I'd start a million start a million projects, and probably not. And if it was up to Daniel, he'd have a million plans, and I don't know how many projects would ever actually get done. But if you put us together, you make a really great pair that not only has a lot of energy and excitement, but those ideas have legs to last. One of the things that we did later at that same church was to start an actual food program for kids, set up with volunteers who would keep working with the kitchen and pantry and supply, people who were involved in a plan for it to keep going even when I wasn't working there anymore. Still works. Those kind of programs where they have not only fantastic energy and ideas, also need the support of the policy and the thought. Jesus' idea of feeding the crowd needs the work of the disciples to keep going. And that's where we come. As a church, we have Jesus' incredible example. Got a lot of things started. Our faith moving, got our hearts ignited, showed us models of where to begin and how to begin with that sense of compassion. And then as institutions, as churches, we're really good at policy, right? We are really good at finding out ways to put things in place. So our job is to put our skills, policy, thinking people together with that spirit of compassion that Christ shows and models, and make programs that last, not just flashes in the pan. The way we do that is we talk to people. We meet our neighbors, ask how we can help, and then figure out how we can not just help once, but keep helping. We can't let that spirit of compassion die. We have to support that. We got to use all the skills that we have learned over the past 2,000 years of how to make things last so that our help can keep going. So whether you're an action person or a planner, find your buddy, whether it's here at church or out in other parts of your life, and fit those things together so your actions and your plans make a difference for those who need them. When, like the disciples, we feel overwhelmed by the needs of your people and the news of the day, renew our capacity for your compassion. Amen. My hope is that you will come back here for worship. We're years centuries, millennia of practice and planning comes back to life each morning, each Sunday morning, with compassion, love, and devotion, so that we might be reignited to care and to continue caring for all the people. I'll see you right back here